Okay, y'all, it's time to talk about our Virgo full moon. Let's do the Ursula of That's So Pisces, and we're going to dive in. This Virgo full moon takes place at 5 degrees on Saturday, February the 24th at 4:30 a.m. here on the West Coast. And this is a Virgo moon being ruled by a Mercury that has just moved into Pisces 2 days before. You may know that Mercury in Pisces is technically not only in its detriment, but also in its fall. It's delightful out here for a Pisces Mercury. So this is a Virgo moon that's being ruled by a Mercury that is as far away from Virgo as is possible at this time. What that means is a moon that is typically thought to be grounded, practical, perfunctory, might find itself infused with a little bit of poetry and magic and timelessness. So, things to be aware of. So on Friday, we have the moon move into Virgo and right away move into an opposition to Mercury at 1 degree. This is where the moon may try to call out Mercury for all of its shenanigans that it's up to in Pisces. The moon in Virgo, again, is practical, wants to be grounded, wants to feel like it's rooted in some sort of routine, wants to be taking care of business. Mercury, newly in Pisces, is a little bit drunk, a little bit drunk on love, a little bit drunk on magic, a little bit detached from order and sequence, experiencing time in a non-linear fashion, concerned with big picture goals and zoomed out and really thinking about the kind of universality of it all. So the moon in this opposition may feel like it's confronting or staring down some of what it's not getting, or some of what is kind of confusing its ability to accomplish what it's trying to accomplish. Now, let's keep in mind that they are concerned with the same thing. They are opposites on the same axis, which means that they are absolutely both thinking about the big picture. Virgo is anxious because Virgo is still a solitary sign before we actually move into collective signs. Virgo is the last sign before we kind of cross from the personal into the interpersonal. So Virgo has the anxiety of anticipating judgment from others, and Pisces is lost in the sauce with all the others. Pisces is the others. And so there's some sort of push and pull here about how we're going about thinking about others. Pisces is I'm already here with the others, and Virgo is I'm anticipating these others. And so they are concerned with the same concept, but doing it in very different ways. We may find ourselves putting words to our feelings at this time. I always call this the T-Swift opposition, if you will. And so there is something about I'm going to take action. I'm going to speak my piece. I'm going to say what I need to say, right? Mercury voice and thoughts and communication and moon feelings. So I'm going to combine these energies in some way that highlights maybe the distance or the dissonance between us. On Saturday, the moon then opposes the sun, bringing us to our full moon. And the full moon then goes on to oppose Saturn at 9 degrees. So the moon itself is full at 5 degrees. The moon, a few hours later, moves into opposition with Saturn. And there is again some feeling of confrontation at hand here. Maybe what we're trying to accomplish here on the ground is being confounded by what Saturn wants for us in the long term. Maybe there's something that's kind of dependent upon a flow state. Maybe something's not able to come together until things kind of flow into place. And Virgo is like, I need this now and I need it here. And I don't know how long you're asking me to wait for this flow state to occur. I am here with the tools at this moment, and the time I have is in the immediate. Fear not, there is a trine to Jupiter at 10 degrees. And so we're able to kind of ground into some of what's coming up for us. Jupiter may show us, again, some sense of opportunity to move in the immediate, right? Earth sign to earth sign. Here you go. Here's these resources. Let Saturn kind of be drifting off in the future space. That's okay. Here's what I can give you right now. Jupiter may show us some source of optimism that we're able to tap into, or maybe we're able to make some sort of meaning from this process. We can kind of zoom out, and remembering that Jupiter's ruling Saturn, right? So Jupiter's able to offer us something now that maybe helps us swallow the pill a little more easily about what Saturn's trying to do in the soon or in the later. This is also the day that Venus in Aquarius makes a square to Jupiter. So Venus ruling Jupiter while Jupiter rules Saturn. And Venus having just met with Mars on Wednesday before this full moon rather, and that meeting taking place at 6 degrees. So Venus coming through and squaring Jupiter. You may recall we had this aspect many times while Venus was retrograde in Leo in the sign opposite Aquarius. So we may have some themes from summer, from that August, September period of what Venus was doing in those squares to Jupiter from that side, from the Leo side. We may see some sort of follow-up or some sort of reconciliation, something coming full circle with Venus making these squares from Aquarius now. Now we will see Venus and Jupiter meet in Taurus before Jupiter moves on to Gemini in the spring. And so this may also connect us with a bigger story that is yet to wrap up. This is the closing square. So we may see some themes, again, coming full circle, wrapping up before we start this new cycle with Venus in domicile, hanging out with Jupiter and bringing some big event in that space. So what that square brought up for us may have been about needing to spend more than we had, trying to live larger than we could. That was a rough summer, and we really had to work with more than we actually had access to at that time. We kind of had to like lie through our teeth, or kind of like fly by the seat of our pants, or kind of like wing it on a prayer, right? So there may be something else here. Again, Venus has just met with Mars. Venus is not retrograde. So this is a much calmer Venus, right? Some of that tension was from Venus being so close to meeting Mars before stationing retrograde. They were both hanging out there at like 26, 27, 28 degrees. And Venus started to slow right as she started to catch up to Mars. Venus stationed retrograde, Mars moved forward into Virgo. So some of that tension contributed to some of those squares. It was sort of I didn't get what I wanted from this meeting that I really wanted to happen. And so I've got to figure out what else I can scrap together to make this happen. Now that Venus and Mars have met and have begun this new cycle together, there's a much different tone to what Venus is bringing to these squares. It's much less fierce in Leo and much more orderly and maybe detached in Aquarius. And so that may figure into this equation in terms of these being the closing squares and bringing us some sort of full circle story here. Now, we had a long void, of course, after the Aquarius new moon. It was 14 hours. We have a traditional, if you look at the traditional astrology, we have a 62-hour void of course after this full moon, right? It's happening at 5 degrees of Virgo, so we're early in the sign. That moon's going to spend the rest of that time in Virgo not talking to anyone. We don't count the outer planets in traditional astrology as those conversations. So we're really just looking at Saturn would be the last planet that would qualify as a conversation for the moon to be having here in this context. And so we can think about this as a deep resting time, right? If we are kind of staring down Saturn and really confronted by what we're struggling to bring to fruition, or where our immediate needs are being sort of superseded by our future or long-term needs, then we are getting that connection to Jupiter, we are getting that trine and maybe recognizing an opportunity that's in front of us. And then we're just sort of wrapping things up. We don't typically start new things in the full moon anyway. But this is an extra invitation to wrap things up. A void of course moon is great for finishing things, not for starting things, because there's no signal. Let's just imagine there's no signal happening. So there's no success to be found in initiating things at this time. We can absolutely use this time to wind things down, to put things away, right? We can think about this as the first full moon. Nope, the last full moon of spring. There we go. Nope. We can think of this as the last full moon of winter, right? Our Pisces new moon will be the last new moon of winter. And so take that to heart. Think about what we are wrapping up here in winter before we open up to the possibilities of spring. Now, the moon is making a trine to Uranus and a square to Neptune. So those outer planets are certainly having conversations with the moon during this void, of course. And it may be more about kind of filling in some of the unknowns about what those outer planets are bringing to us, right? Uranus has been a big part of this lunation cycle. It cracked us open into the new changes we've been moving through. Some of this full moon may have us trying to reconcile what we're able to make happen in the immediate versus what we're trying to build in the future through this change. And so maybe that change hasn't occurred quickly enough to give us the tools we need in this moment to feel like we're making progress toward those changes. So there's a trine to Uranus, a square to Neptune, where we may be faced with some doubt around our capacity, right? In Virgo, we're like, I'm going to get it done. And Neptune's like, what is it? And what does it mean, right? And so we may be faced with some of those insecurities. We may be faced with some of those feelings of doubt or insurmountability regarding what we're trying to do. We may find ourselves a little bit dizzy, foggy on the details. And that's also maybe why it's time to just take a rest, like finish things up. Don't get so caught up in what you think needs to be done faster than it's able to get done right now. Let's just wrap up what's in front of us. And just lay low for this time and allow these things to kind of settle. Okay, let's go ahead, pull out our Aquarius new moon pull. We'll pull out last week's Taurus first quarter moon pull. We'll get a recap on what the story looks like thus far. And we'll go ahead and pull those cards for this Virgo full moon and see what's culminating now. So stay tuned.
Okay. We've got our narrative from our Aquarius new moon. We have our continuation from the Taurus first quarter. If you missed either of these narratives and you want to know what the F is going on with all this pinky kind of sunsetness, head to these videos here and then meet us back here and we will continue on. All right, here we go. A quick reminder that if you would like to pull along with us, you can head to my website, priestessbaby.com/shop, and you can download the free Moon Phase Tarot Pull PDF. It has all of the moon phases in it. Okay. I have painted my nails and I feel so beautiful today. Okay. Just to remind you that Mercury is fully in Pisces now. Okay. All right, so as we explore this full moon, we are looking at a situation that is culminating now, as well as how we can make space for this situation or revelation. We are asking about what we are able to celebrate in the light of this full moon. And lastly, we'll check in about what we can prepare to release at this time. We'll do that releasing formally as the moon reaches the third quarter next week and onward into the waning moon. But we'll identify at this time what those things may be so that we can begin that preparation. Okay. That feels pretty good. Yeah. I think one more of these. Okay. All right. Scooch. All right. I feel like everyone needs a little more room. Okay. Just here we go. All right. A situation that is culminating now. Well, isn't that cute? Love that for us. Okay, so in the Aquarius new moon, we identified parts of our experience that were not really doing it for us, all right? Parts of our experience where we realized this isn't really the cozy home I intended to build when I set out to create this space. There is something maybe amiss about what my current experience is in terms of who I am and how I get to celebrate myself within my kind of home space. We talked about at the first quarter moon being in a place of sailing away from something, wondering if we were really going to get to be ourselves, or like wondering if doubting that we were going to get to kind of pull that off in a way that we needed to, figuring out where we are kind of not really feeling like we're approaching this from a place of integrity, not really feeling like we really know everyone transparently involved in the situation. And so now we see this situation culminating of truth, of authenticity. So whatever we've identified in that Aquarius new moon, and that may have involved a lot of kind of revelations out of left field with all of the Uranus influence, we've decided whether or not it's time for us to take that moving away. We've decided what it is we are moving away from. And as we've moved through this process in this lunation phase, this is driving me crazy. There we go. We've arrived at a place now at the full moon where we are really ourselves, where we are emerging from this tower period, right? Of seeing things we know fall away, seeing the world we know fall apart, seeing and feeling things, kind of the rug pulled out from under us. So we've experienced some, I'm going to use the word I made up again, tumultuosity. It just really flows off the tongue. I can't explain it. Mercury is in Pisces. All right, this is who I really am on the inside. All right, so we've experienced some chaos and possibly, hopefully, some catharsis. This is us on the other side of that North Node Chiron conjunction. So we saw that kind of show up in the Taurus new moon, or the Taurus first quarter pull. That sense of like, am I really going to get to be me? Am I going to get to address what's really going on inside? And this may see us tapping into that energy, feeling a sense of hope, perhaps, where there has been uncertainty and confusion. Maybe we are just kind of tapping into this energy right now. Maybe this is a really internal process where we're seeing this sort of like authenticity and connectedness and like alchemy happening after everything has burned away, and we're just tapping into that within ourselves right now. We're like, I've gone through some really internal changes. Maybe there's nothing externally shifting around us, and this has all been within ourselves. Maybe we are like reluctant to tap into this energy. Maybe we feel resistant to hope at this time because things have been so uncertain. And that's okay. Like, we just talked about how this moon is opposing a lot of things, right? It's opposing its ruler, Mercury. It's opposing Saturn. So we might be feeling still some sense of pressure or some sense of fear or some sense of limitation. And therefore, we're not comfortable, like, trusting this sense of hope that's trying to emerge, or that we want to emerge from within us. How I can make space for this situation or revelation. Well, that's kind of a nice sign. The Knight of Cups is very endearing, very charming, very much wants to kind of sweep you off your feet. This can be a very romantic energy. This can just be like emotionally demonstrative. Like, I'm just really open with my feelings. So how I can make space for the situation, maybe it's time to step into the role of being emotionally demonstrative. I am in a time where I don't really know up from down, but I feel a sense of hope. I feel more connected to my inner ability to alchemize, to transcend, right? This is us emerging from the tower. So this is us raw, right? Unadulterated, kind of like born from the flames of the phoenix. So what do we want to do with that? What emotions do we want to express about that? Who do we want to express them to? Is this about us? Do we want someone to sweep us off our feet? Are we emerging from the rubble and saying, here I am, take me? Maybe. I like that for you. Maybe we are stepping out of playing this role. If we were playing this role in a way that was unfulfilling or that was being taken advantage of or taken for granted, and we have emerged from the rubble renewed, then maybe what we make sense of or how we make space is by denying needing to show up as this in certain spaces. Maybe that's been connected to what we've explored isn't right for us in this lunation cycle. Okay. What I'm able to celebrate in the light of this moon, we know much more about the choices that are in front of us at this time. Not only do we know more about what those choices are, we know about how we react to them and how our own mindset colors what those choices look like. Am I looking at my options from a place of fear? Well, then all of my options are going to be tinged with a faint hint of fear. No wonder there's snakes in this cup. No wonder in this card, no wonder I'm in a spiral, because I'm in the spiral. So if I'm in the spiral, I'm bringing that to my options. If I'm coming from a place of scarcity, then all my options look like they're not enough. If I'm desperate, then my options reflect that desperation. If this is colored by something that's been imprinted by me, onto me rather, in the past, then that's reflected in all of these options in front of me. So we are celebrating this discernment, the ability to discern. We are celebrating, I may not know what's going on in front of me, and I do have hope. And maybe I'm stepping out of a role of being the giver of hope to all these other people. And in that story, I also see where I no longer feel the need to respond to what those options are when they surface, because I know they're coming from a place of the old me where I was showing up as this for people. Conversely, I have emerged from the rubble and now I'm ready to share my emotions. And what I recognize is that I haven't allowed my emotions to be part of this process in the past. The color of what these options look like is lack of color, because I refuse, or I have not been able to connect my emotions to these choices in the past. So we're celebrating that. And I think we've already sort of explored what the reversal would be. Like, I've gone in here and done this work. We're celebrating, right? So I don't think that this is going to be like, I've resisted this. We might be feeling some sort of transformation within ourselves. I know what I'm feeling within. I've been very confused in the past about my own feelings. Libra South Node vibes show up really hard in that story. I don't even know what my own feelings are. We're in Pisces season, right? Everyone's feelings are our feelings. And I'm celebrating the fact that now I know the difference. Now I know what my feelings are versus what other people's feelings are. And I don't have trouble establishing those boundaries and knowing what is mine and what is not mine. Or, what other people's feelings might be influencing versus my own feelings. What I'm able to release in the light of this moon. Has all of this been keeping us from tending to ourselves? or have the situations we've been part of, those Four of Wands situations that we've identified, aren't satisfying us, or that we are recognizing that those things satisfy us. Like, has all of that confusion and all of those old patterns, have those been keeping us from being able to root into our own sense of being resourced, being able to root into and ground into our own sense of abundance? This is the queen, right? This is not the king who's like paying out to people. This is the queen who's like, I'm enjoying the payout of my own realm. I am able to share my sense of abundance. I'm not necessarily giving it away or like leading you in any way toward it. I'm here. This is mine. I'm anchored in it. And I'm absolutely happy to share with whomever comes by. So maybe we can release resistance to being our own Queen of Pentacles. Maybe we can release any resistance around this being okay. Remember that we've burned away all of the old way of being. And this is us emerging with this hope and authenticity again. And like raw, being just brought back to our essence, like stripped down to our essence, if you will. And so from here, we are absolutely seeing where it's necessary to embrace this for ourselves. Especially if we've separated away from things that weren't fulfilling for us, it's time to root into ourselves, right? If we have even just been identifying what isn't fulfilling for us, then this is us giving ourselves that nurturance of what does fulfill us. What I can release is maybe another role-playing situation where I need to do that kind of for other people or for a show. Maybe if I've been motivated in some way to do this in a way that feels inauthentic to me, then I can release that. Okay, I'm very excited to see what shows up for us in the Sagittarius third quarter moon. So thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed, please like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you in a week to talk about how we're releasing this and what that looks like. See you then.